City Council. Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning, everyone.
And you lined up an interview with Jonathan Paton, who's on the phone right now. He is running for Congressional District 1, CD1. He's taking on Ian Kirkpatrick, correct?
Yep, good morning.
And I'll bring him up right now.
All right.
And Jeff, you know Jonathan.
I know Jonathan. Good morning, Jonathan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing outstanding, you guys.
Great. Good
Thanks
to hear
a lot
from
for
you.
joining us. Why don't we just start with CD1? It gets complicated with the redistricting and then the LD6 and CD1. So why don't you just describe what district you're in and what you're running for as far as the office?
Well, it's one of the biggest districts in the country. It goes basically from northern Pima County, from Marana and Oro Valley, all the way up to the Utah border. If you can imagine, almost all of eastern Arizona is in it, and it's got 11 counties, and one of those counties is Coconino County, and it is a massive district, just a little bit bigger than the state of Pennsylvania.
So, Jonathan, I guess, when I was running for city council, people often ask me, why are you running?
Well, and it's probably the most important question of all is why are you doing this in the first place? And for me, the reason is that Washington is fundamentally broken. I mean, you look around and you see the economy the way it is today. You see the straits our state is in and the rest of the country, and I just couldn't stand the situation that we find ourselves in. I think that all stems from leadership, and I felt that if you complain enough, you need to eventually take action. So I decided I would run for Congress to do what I could to try to restore this country and try to fix some of the problems that we have.
And Jonathan Paton, what's your history? What are your qualifications? Why are you qualified for the position?
Well, I've been in the state. Well, first of all, I was born and raised in Arizona, so I know the state very well. I served in the legislature for 6 years, first in the state house and then the state senate. And I'm also a U.S. Army combat veteran and officer. I started out as a private in 1999, and I worked my way up to sergeant, and then I got my commission in 2003. Volunteered for service in Iraq. And so I do know a lot about leadership and about some difficult circumstances, and I feel like that gives me a good understanding about how to fix this country.
Jonathan, you told me a story once about when you were serving. When you served in Iraq, you were actually serving in the legislature, right?
That's correct. I served in the state house, and after my first year, I was sent to Fort Benning, Georgia, to go through infantry training, and I listened to a lot of my fellow soldiers were getting ready to go to Iraq, go to Afghanistan, etc. And the expectation was, as a state lawmaker, I wouldn't have to go to combat zone, and it really bothered me. And I put in a request to volunteer for active duty in Iraq, and they approved it, and after my second year in office, I deployed in 2006. And it was really a very important experience in my life because I got the chance to serve actually with some of my own constituents that were from Sierra Vista, which was part of my district at the time. I had been serving in Fort Huachuca. And it was an extremely important experience in my life.
All right. Jonathan Paton is running for Congress in Congressional District 1. Why don't we start there then? You obviously have a pretty extensive military background. How do you feel about supporting our defense program and how much spending should be made and continue to be made with defense, and then, of course, veterans benefits and back to work and transitional programs? What's your stance there in funding not only our active military but our veterans?
Well, I think that the role of government really is always to preserve our liberties, and a part of preserving those liberties certainly is the national defense, and that's, we can argue about a lot of different things, but I think that most conservatives agree that is something that we definitely have to take seriously. We saw what Ronald Reagan was able to build back our nation's military, and we've been strong, and we need to continue that strength because it's the one thing that has has deterred our enemies from taking advantage of the United States in the past. So I really do believe that the military needs to be protected, and as a part of that, we make a commitment to the young men and women who give up their lives, give up a good portion of their lives in military service, and we owe them and their that tradition that we take care of our nation's veterans. And one of the things that deeply concerns me is in Congress, as you know, they were unable to come up with an agreement on the budget, and the Senate, of course, has not passed a budget in quite a while. And one of the things that they decided to fix the problem with was sequestration, in which they would have dramatic cuts for the military and other discretionary spending in equal measures. I think it was like a 50% cut to the military, as well as 50% cuts to other things. And that sequestration is extremely dangerous for the nation, because if we do that, we are currently at war, and I'm really afraid that if we dramatically reduce what we're doing, I don't think we're going to be giving our men and women the tools to defend themselves and to complete the mission. And we've given them a mission to complete. I don't think we can afford to do that.
All right. Well, Jonathan, we got so many issues to deal with. What's your number one issue? I mean, in Congress, we have so many things going on, so many things to deal with. What would be your first thing?
Well, I think it's the same that my constituents are talking about every day, and that's jobs and economy. You look at the numbers of people out of work in this district. There are thousands of people who are out of work. There's people that their wages, even when they do have jobs, their wages aren't particularly high. And the reason for that really is a lot of regulation, at least in Congressional District 1, in this massive rural district. It's because of all this massive regulation that's going on in this country, and I think that stifles jobs. I think the government is actually standing in the way of people's ability to keep jobs or have new jobs. And there are things that we could do that would bring jobs immediately to Congressional District 1, and one example of that is the Resolution Copper Mine near Superior in Pinal County. There's other things about trying to make sure that we have commercial timber in that would also help protect our forests. There's so many different ways in which the federal government is either threatening jobs. And another example are the coal-fired power plants in places like the Navajo Generating Station and other areas. I could go on for quite a while, but we need to stay out of private industry's way so they can actually provide jobs for people.
Yeah, Jonathan, that brings up a big concern for folks up here in this part of the district in northern Arizona and across the country, I hope, for that matter, is the these more traditional energy resources like coal and the mining and the timber industry. It really makes certain members of our community, I don't want to say environmentalists because I kind of agree with Jeff, we're all environmentalists, but it makes us a little bit uneasy about air pollution and water contamination and clear cutting and those types of environmental concerns that I think we should all have. How do you balance that without letting the private sector and private industry run wild, clear cut our forests, pollute our water and our air, but still reduce the regulations so they can function?
I think that first of all, you have to use real science, and you have to have you have to be reasonable about what you're doing. We don't want to have clear cutting in this state. Obviously, but we do need to have the ability to thin the forest so that the forest is healthy, so you don't bring so much fuel into the forest that you basically have the risk of a forest fire, like we saw with the Wallow fire, for example. I think the second thing is that you talked about clean air. These coal-fired plants that we have, the complaint has always been haze over the Grand Canyon. It's not even concerns that they have about that the air isn't safe to breathe. It was all about something that was basically changes to the naked eye. Well, their solution to that, the thing that they've required these coal-fired plants to do, is they've required them to put in these new scrubbers on their stacks, and unfortunately, those new scrubbers actually don't change haze or the particulate matter in the air to the naked eye. And they don't actually fix the problem they say they want to be addressed. And I think that should be part of the solution. If you're going to require something, it should actually fix the problem. I think we should be reasonable, and we want to protect the environment ultimately, but we also don't want to make things so difficult that it just seems like we're punishing, these plants simply because they use coal. And I think it has to be founded on real science. And I think the final thing is people don't realize this, but we're actually providing all of these things that we're talking about have really come about because of lawsuits by the Center for Biological Diversity and other groups. And these groups, people don't realize this, but they use federal money to pay for the lawsuits that they have against the federal government. And I think that is not really what our country, that's not how our country should operate. You shouldn't be funding lawsuits against yourself, and especially when those lawsuits are really designed to kill any development whatsoever.
Jonathan, it can be frustrating. I know as a conservative, when people paint conservatives as wanting dirty air, dirty water, and all that, people don't believe it. We're all environmentalists in a way. So I want to change it up a little bit, though. I read in the Arizona Republic an endorsement you got the other day. If you want to expand on that a little bit.
Well, we've had the opportunity to debate our opponent, Ann Kirkpatrick. We did that in Casa Grande, and then we did that in front of a few newspapers in the state, and then finally in Marana. And I guess after the first debate, losing the first debate, she was pretty upset and went into the editorial board meeting with the Arizona Republic, and according to, and these aren't my words, but she became pretty insulting, I guess, in the editorial board with the Republic, and they decided it's not exactly a conservative bastion there on the editorial board for the Republic, but they did endorse me because of my record, and also because of her performance in that particular encounter between the two of us. And it was quite the editorial. If you haven't read it, you should. I think, Jeff, you have it posted on your Facebook page, and it's. I've never seen anything quite like it.
I've got it on my site, jeffforflagstaff.com, and maybe at the end you can give us your info as well.
Yeah, it's Paton2012.com. Jonathan, one interesting situation I think our representatives get into is looking out for the constituents in the district and securing funding for important things in the district. And a lot of times it's earmarks, quite frankly, but when it's for your district, we don't consider it wasteful government spending earmarks. We consider it vital things we need. The big example up here is the Rio de Flag project, and it's something that is very vital for our economic development here in northern Arizona, and we need to get this completed, and quite frankly, we need the federal government's help to get it completed. So what's your take on going to Washington and fighting for that type of funding while still trying to avoid we've got the deficit issue? So how do you kind of balance that? Are you for earmarks, or how do you categorize what you fight to get funded for in the district?
Well, here's sort of my standard in that the problem has not been that people fighting for their districts. The problem has been kind of the way they've gone about it. And the traditional earmarking process has been where they find a project or what have you, and they decide they're going to fund it, but they do it in a very sort of secretive and somewhat deceptive manner in which they hide that into the budget. In 2008, after the president was elected, they had an appropriations budget with over 9,000 earmarks, and those earmarks were not fully vetted in committee. They weren't very transparent, and I believe strongly in fighting for things in your district. I just believe that should be transparent. It should be in the appropriations bill where everybody can see it, they can read it, they can debate it, and they can say, well, if this is either viable or it's not viable. It's a study on the mating habits of fruit flies, or it is something that's vital to the economy and to this country, and it's transportation related or what have you. that just has to be fully vetted, and it has to be transparent to the American people. And I think that we've seen a process that hasn't been that way traditionally in Washington, D.C. And so I'm not adverse to supporting and fighting for my district and fighting for needs that exist in my district. What I am against is not being open about it, not being transparent about it, where people can know exactly what Congress is spending their money on and where we can actually debate, all those priorities.
Okay, and I have one last question. I don't know if Jeff has anything else, and then I'll let you wrap up. But one of my big concerns is the partisanship in Washington currently. It's the conservatives run to their side of the room, the liberals run to their side of the room, and then they just dig in their feet in the sand, and nothing gets accomplished. And for just an average Joe American citizen, it is so extremely frustrating to see folks go to Washington. Oh, it's all the Democrats' fault. Democrats haven't. Senate hasn't passed a budget, blah, blah. And then the other side going, oh, no, it's all the Republicans' fault because they don't do blah, blah, blah. I need a representative that's going to go to Washington and compromise, give a little, hold their principles strong, and fight, but get something accomplished. That's great. I'm principled, and because of my principles, I haven't done anything. Thanks a lot. I need someone that's going to be able to come to the table and try to accomplish something, because I think that's one of my biggest frustrations I see in Washington. What is your approach to working with people that possibly have different viewpoints and maybe giving a little or a little give and take to get something actually passed and accomplished?
Well, first of all, I think that if you want to see a model of dysfunction, I think you should read that editorial with the Republic that they wrote. But I also think that you're absolutely right. There has to be an acknowledgement on the part of all of us to realize the mistakes that, for example, my party has made. The Republican Party didn't live up to the principles that it espoused, which is one of the reasons why we've had they lost Congress, they lost the presidency in 2008, and I think that they basically went off track and they started doing things that were really no different than the other party. I think the other thing that we need to do is we need to look at it and say, look, this is what I believe in, and I don't care if it's a Republican who helps me or if it's a Democrat who helps me. We're in this to make this the greatest country in the world, and we need to fight for that and not fight for a party, not fight for narrow factional interests like our founders talked about, but fight for the good of the nation.
Yeah, constantly fighting to be reelected.
Well, and that's absolutely true. I mean, it is obviously the system that's been created, but I think it doesn't have to be that way. I think that we can work together. I certainly have my principles, but I also believe that the American people do want to get things done, and they want to make sure that their representatives spend their time working together and not constantly bickering with one another.
Yeah. Well, Jonathan, last question, I guess, because I know you're busy and you got to get out of here. But how's the race going? How do you feel? You got any polling data, anything like that you can share with us?
We do. Monday of this week, there was a poll that was released, and for the first time, it's been really close the entire time, but for the first time, we're starting to pull ahead. We're 5 points ahead in the polling that was released. That's very encouraging, but we realize that one poll is just a snapshot in time, and we realize that we really have to work hard and to make sure that we maintain that lead. And we're going to be fighting all the way through into Election Day. And I think this is one of the most watched districts in the entire country. For your listeners out there, it is an extremely important race, and it's going to be. We can't do it on our own. We do need your help. Go log on to Paton2012.com and get involved.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Jonathan Paton. And Paton 2012 is the website, and I see you got a contact button right there, so people can get a hold of you and ask some more specific questions of your platform and your beliefs and your policies and how you'll represent us if you end up getting elected.
That's the plan.
All right. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us. I appreciate it. Paton2012.com. It's Jonathan Paton. He's running for Congress in Congressional District 1, which covers Flagstaff, along with a whole lot of other areas in Arizona. Anything else before I let you go, Jonathan?
No, I just want to thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to talk to everybody today. It's a great opportunity for me.
All right.
Thanks,
a lot.
Jonathan.
Talk to you later.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So there you have it, Jonathan Paton, who is running for CD1 congressman. And again, Paton2012.com. We'll take a break.